Summer is coming soon, but use caution when planning a vacation. Good evening, I'm Lisa Oligas, and you're watching Newsmakers. The travel season is upon us, but beware of deals that sound too good to be true. In this edition, we get travel advice from the Better Business Bureau. Our guest is Regional BBB Director Pamela Hernandez. Welcome back to Newsmakers.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to be here.
You always give great tips and advice. So planning a trip, it can mean booking flights, a place to stay, even activities. With the internet, people have access to online bookings, but the question becomes, is it better to do it yourself or use a travel agent? So how do you decide?
Oh, and there's no definitive answer because everybody is different. So I'm a DIY person. I want to get into all the details. I want to research all of the stuff.
But research is important.
Research is important. You want to plan ahead, leave yourself plenty of time to research your different flight options, to compare hotels, read reviews, get as much information as possible before you make any kind of decision or book anything.
So planning far ahead is important, but can you get last minute deals that are good sometimes, or is it always better? Are you going to get a good deal if you plan farther ahead?
You know, the kind of golden rule is to plan ahead, that you earlier you can get in there, you can get those flight deals, but sometimes you can find some last minute deals. You can book something, maybe say with points you couldn't book. I actually recently had an experience myself where I had to cancel, I had to cut a trip short.
Oh boy.
And due to some weather. And so I literally booked a flight 24 hours ahead and I got a really good deal with points because they had those seats left over. So you don't necessarily leave it a chance, but planning ahead, booking early, generally you're going to get your best opportunities.
Okay. You've received reports from scammers pretending to be online airline ticket brokers. Is that a real thing? I mean, how can you tell if they're genuine? Are there online ticket brokers?
We have had reports from consumers. Scammers know how to manipulate internet searches just like a marketing company. So they can create really convincing looking websites for when customers go out, they go to their search engine and they put in a really broad search. Best deals to Miami, best price on a flight to California. And scammers know how to get their websites up to the top of the search results and often can create a site that looks very similar to a company we might know and love. So I'll use an example. And again, this is by no way saying one has been impersonated, but it's an easy example to use. We know the travel company Expedia. So we kind of know what that site looks like, what their logo looks like. A scammer can create a website. They can create a URL that looks very similar with maybe an Xpedia as opposed to Expedia spelled out. And if you're not paying attention, if you're not looking at that URL carefully, you might not notice a difference as you go through that whole booking process thinking you got a really great deal.
And then you sent your money and then there's no reservation at all.
There's no reservation, or even worse, you've sent your money. Consumers have told us about getting then an additional call that said there's a problem, you need to rebook. There's an additional fee, there's a difference in ticket cost. And sometimes that's only when they understand that they have unfortunately gotten involved in a scam.
Okay. When booking a place to stay, what should you consider? Are Airbnbs a safe bet? I've heard of people getting there and it's been double booked or it's different than what they pictured. What are some of those rental cons that we need to be aware of?
Well, again, it goes back to doing your research. Airbnb can be a great way. There are a number of different sites that let you do those sort of vacation rentals. Somebody's renting out their home or a room. You want to do the research on the company. And then if you can get the location, I know sometimes those websites, they don't always give you that address right away, right? So once you get an address, once you get some information, go and do a search online. You can pull up Google Earth and you can see what the property looks like, if it's actually there, if there are people using it. So do some research, see if you can get some references. That's another great way to find out more about a property. Hey, can I talk to anybody that stayed there before? And even before you start trying to book, maybe ask your friends and family, have they gone to that destination and have they stayed at a rental that they enjoy so that you can specifically hunt out that property.
Okay. So the minute you talk about a vacation, your phone seems to know and starts sending you these suggestions. I mean, literally you just say the word like Florida and they'll give you suggestions. So when you see offers on Facebook for deals on beautiful trips, free, or homes to rent for a week, are they legit?
You want to be very, very careful with any kind of ad you see on social media. That's for anything across the board. Scammers love to create fake social media ads to get you to some place where they can get your information, your credit card, money, anything. So it's better to go directly to a property's site. So if there's a hotel chain you see advertised, for example, that has a great deal, go directly to their website, go directly to their app, or you see a vacation package from a company, go directly to their website instead of clicking on that deal or that ad on social media. Unfortunately, we've just had too many reports of, again, all types of things that are scams that start with a social media ad.
Yeah. So Airbnb versus a hotel. Can all hotels be trusted? You guys have a little warning on your site about ways your credit card information might be compromised at a hotel. So what do we need to know when even just booking a hotel?
Again, just doing your research. I mean, if you're booking with a reputable chain, you've got some protections in there, right? So going through, again, a chain that that has a good reputation, but you still want to protect yourself and look at each property. The properties can sometimes be owned by franchisees, so they don't have a lot of, they have more of the control. So again, read reviews, go to BBB.org, see if there's a history of complaints, see what the reviews are there. Just try to see what people's experience have been before you so that you can understand, and certainly ask a lot of questions. Even if it's a reputable chain, there could be fees that you aren't expecting. That can be another thing that consumers tell us about. So just asking a lot of questions before you book.
Okay, let's talk cruises and resorts. Okay, so all-inclusive. Sometimes that seems like a super good deal, and I know my daughter went on one to Mexico and had a great time for a really low amount. Do they usually give you everything that is promised? I mean, what should you know about all-inclusives or resorts?
All-inclusives should be all-inclusive. And that comes down to getting the agreement and reading everything.
Fine print.
Yes, the fine print. You may see a hotel that has a resort fee. Well, what does that resort fee actually cover? I've stayed at a hotel, same chain, where the resort fee really was like a resort fee, golf and trails and all the things that you might expect. And I've stayed at another hotel that charged a resort fee because they had a very nice gym, I'll admit, and 24-hour tea and coffee service.
That was it.
That was it. So, depending on what you're looking for and what that fee is, you want to ask the question, what am I getting for this? When you say all-inclusive, what is that? Is everything all-inclusive on the property? But you might have to pay for transportation to or from the airport or excursions off property. So really get everything in writing as to what that includes.
Are resorts sometimes maybe safer if you're going to a foreign country? Are they more well-known? Do they offer any kind of safety?
Resorts certainly can, particularly in areas that may be a little less stable, may have more crime. So asking those questions, what are the accommodations to and from, for example? Is somebody going to pick you up from the airport, or do you have to try to negotiate that on your own? What can you do within the resort versus what are you going to need to go out of the resort for? So you can make adjustments that feel good for your own safety.
Yeah. Let's talk cruises. Are they a great deal? What do you need to know when you want to book a cruise?
Well, again, that depends on what you want to do. Some people want a more leisurely vacation. Some people want a more active vacation. So you have to ask questions, what's available? Meals, alcohol, what does all of that include? And then what kind of opportunities are available if you want to take advantage of them when you reach your destination?
Okay. So are prices advertised really what you're going to pay? And you mentioned resort fees. Are there hidden fees in other ways as well that we need to be aware of, like, with your flight and lodging and cars even?
There certainly can be, and it feels like those fees are changing all the time. Recently, I've been searching for a flight for a trip I want to take this summer, and I see a price, I'm like, great, and then I click on the price, and then it's basic and main extra. So it's not always what you see at first glance. And then it may not include your baggage, right? It may not include...
Even Southwest recently ended the free 2 bags.
That's right, your bags no longer fly for free. So you really need to find out, what does that include? What is that carry-on policy? Just asking questions about any additional fees, taxes, parking. More places, more hotels are charging for parking. I recently stayed somewhere I'd stayed at many times before, only to find out there was a parking fee when I got there, and that had never happened. Not valet, not anything fancy.
Just to be on site.
Just to have a car on site. So it wasn't a lot, but it was unexpected. So going in, doing the research, asking the questions, even if you've stayed at a property before, it can change.
And we were talking about a little bit luggage. Do you have to worry about, there was a weight thing for a while. So how do you know how to pack to avoid going over? Are there weight limits, and do you have a certain size suitcase that helps?
Every
contain that?
every airline is different. So certainly doing the research, knowing what you're doing, what you can and can't pack before you show up at the airport. But yes, there are often limits on what you can go in that one carry-on or that one bag. And as flights are getting more full, they're getting a little more strict about that, about making sure your bag can fit in that little container that they have right by the gate as you go on the plane. So just double check, do some measurements, weigh your bag at home so you're not forced to try to abandon things at the airport. I've seen that plenty of times.
I'm unpacking at the airport.
Yes.
Can't carry this shoe.
Yes.
All right. So is renting a car the best option when it comes? What is the best option when it comes to fuel? Is it cheaper to fill up before you return the vehicle? I know some of them have it. Oh, just bring it in empty and then they'll fill it. What is the best thing if you're trying to watch your pennies?
Well, and that again, that's different for every destination. One destination, the gas could be much more expensive at another destination. So you really want to ask those questions and figure out what your situation is. So for example, when I go visit my family, they're going to drive me a lot of places. I don't bother with a car. If I need to get somewhere that they can't take me, it's cheaper to get a ride share.
Okay.
So understanding the things that you want to do a little research about proximity. Again, if you're staying in a busy, bustling downtown of a big city, public transit's probably going to be a better option for you than renting a car. So understanding those fees, understanding your usage, and what the conditions are on the ground.
Yeah, you go to New York City, you're not going to be able to get anywhere in a car.
No, I would
Unless you
never
just
want to
take the
drive.
subway.
Never want to drive there.
So what do we need to know about cancellations and refunds? Are you out of money if you need to cancel? And how far in advance do you need to make that decision?
It's going to depend again on hotel, airline. Everybody's cancellation policies are different these days. They changed a lot with 2020. As a seasoned traveler, there's a lot of difference now in what you can cancel. And if you can get your money back or you can get a travel credit. It's going to depend, for example, on your flight, what kind of flight you purchased initially. So again, looking at those prices and what you're booking to start and understanding, am I going to get my money back or are they just going to give me a travel credit in place? So it can happen. Same thing with hotels. It seems like fewer hotels are doing you don't have to pay up front or that there's no kind of cancellation fee unless maybe you're a member of their loyalty program, for example. So sometimes signing up for a loyalty program can help you avoid or get around some of those fees, but you really want to read that fine print before you decide to pay.
What about travel insurance? Yes, no, recommended?
It's a great question because it depends on the travel insurance. The thing sometimes people don't understand about travel insurance is it's not if you don't feel safe traveling, for example, or maybe something happens. That's typically not covered with travel insurance. Or if a condition is known before you leave. So let's say, for example, you decide you want to go on a cruise and maybe there's a hurricane in the area and you're going to risk it anyway. Well, once that's forecasted, it's a known condition. So your travel insurance may not protect you. Sometimes it's better to look at the credit card you book with because sometimes credit cards will have travel insurance of their own or travel delay insurance. So for example, let's just say you get stuck because of weather overnight in an airport. Airline's not going to pay for that because, act of God. But if you have travel delay insurance on your credit card, they will cover those costs for you. So there are other ways to go about protecting yourself besides travel insurance, but it can be handy in certain circumstances.
All right, let's talk travel agents. We've been doing DIY. Are there all those safety checks we've had to do as if you do it yourself? If you just think it's easier to have somebody else do it because you might not remember all the things, what do you need to know about picking a travel agent?
Oh, and that is such a wonderful thing to take all the things that we've talked about and then just give them to somebody else. And they're the expert, and that's what you're paying for. And just like with any expert, somebody who's going to do something to your house or cut your hair, you want to do your research. Maybe ask for referrals to start. you can certainly go online. BBB.org is a good place to look.
You guys give ratings, A+, B, C?
You got it. And you can check to see if there's complaints,
Okay.
history, any kind of reviews. You can get that information there. And then interview more than one. You know, we always say rule of thumb, get 3 estimates. Go with 3 different travel agents and see what kind of questions they ask you. A good travel agent wants to know, what kind of experience do you want to have? What's important to you? Do you have any physical limitations, disabilities, medical conditions that they need to work around so that they create the perfect vacation for you?
Should you use one that's close to home, or does it matter if you go out of state, like you're going to that state, do you want to use a travel agent where you're going, or better that someone you might live around?
You know, BBB generally recommends to try to use someone locally.
Okay.
That way you can develop that rapport. It's a little bit easier to get that information. And you can go to their office. You can just kind of see what that environment is like and get to know them a little bit better. You've got that point of contact. So now if something goes wrong, you have someone to kind of help locally to work with you.
What should you expect to pay? What maybe percentage of your trip, or how much more would it cost, or can it even save you money to go with a travel agent?
You know, again, it's going to depend. There's so many variations, and sometimes it can, because travel agents sometimes have blocks. They work with certain companies. They can get some of the better deals. So, you know, you can always do a little research on your own. Just say, okay, if I were going to book this myself, what would it cost? And look at that versus the travel agent and make a decision from there. But sometimes they do have some deals and secrets that we, the general public, don't have access to.
One more question. All right. Is it good to look for package deals, and could you end up on a tour you might not want to go on? So, I mean, how do you maybe do something like that? Of course, oh, it's all planned for you. Is that a good thing, or does it depend on the tour that you're going on?
Depends on the tour, depends on the person. Sometimes there are great deals to be had with group vacation packages, for example, where you're traveling with others. Economies of scale, right? If we have 10 or 15 people going to the same place and doing the same thing, we can get a better deal. And again, it's just a matter of looking at those individual things that are a part of that package. How much would it cost you to book them versus the cost of the package? Sometimes it can be a great deal, plus you're with a group, and that, particularly if you're a solo traveler, might make you feel more safe, and that can be worth a lot.
What if you decide you want to stay a day longer than a planned trip? Is that possible? Will it cost you a lot more?
Well, if you're traveling with a group, that certainly runs into a lot of other complications. If you are traveling just you or you and your family, it's going to depend. You know, another night, if the hotel has room, they're usually more than happy to accommodate you. Changing your flight, that could cost you a little bit more. So it's going to depend on the airline and where you're staying.
All right, excellent. Great information, but we need to talk potential scams. When we come back, we'll learn about timeshares and vacation clubs, along with advice about other travel scams. As we go to break, a warning from the BBB.
Welcome to your next luxury vacation destination, where paradise meets extravagance. Experience the epitome of luxury, complete with high-pressure sales and hidden fees? Wait a minute, who would want this? Don't let deceitful companies and scammers ruin your travel plans. Learn what to watch out for at bbb.org/scam studies.
Welcome back to Newsmakers, where we're getting travel advice from the BBB. Pamela Hernandez is our guest, and it's time to talk vacation fraud. Now, we just saw a PSA that shares a warning about timeshare pitches, which is usually follow an offer for a free stay, free show, what's supposed to be a 1-hour, 90-minute tour. You get complaints at the BBB about those, so tell us about those. I mean, 20,000 complaints even? I mean, what is it, a high-pressure situation?
It can be, and unfortunately in Southwest Missouri, we do have a large number of timeshare companies and timeshare properties. So we are, I feel sometimes kind of in a hotbed of activity when it comes to timeshares. So the PSA was part of a study we did in 2023 looking at that industry. And yes, between a period of 2020 to 2022, we had just over 20,000 complaints related to timeshares and vacation clubs. So It's a big deal. And
How is money lost in that way?
you know, it's a great question. These high-pitched presentations, like you said, people get signed up because they're going to get some free show tickets or maybe a free night stay, and they end up in these hours long, like we're talking 6, 7, 8 hours, sales presentations that people feel very pressured to sign, kind of just wearing people down sometimes. Not always being clear with what they're signing up for and what they're getting, unfortunately. And it can be, I mean, the average timeshare cost when we did the study was $24,000. So if you're feeling pressured, you sign something, maybe you're even told that you can cancel within a certain time, and unfortunately by the time someone gets home, that time is usually run out. They're on the hook for a lot of money. And then there are continuing fees. So things like maintenance fees that unfortunately, based on our research, based on what consumers tell us, continue to go up year after year. So it is a very costly thing for someone to get into.
It sounds like a neat thing. Oh, I'm going to buy a place in Florida. I get to go there every year. But do you always get the week you wanted? Are there things like that that come up that are problems as well?
Sure. I mean, and so we talk about timeshares and we talk about vacation clubs. And so
What's the difference between the two?
Yeah, so a timeshare is just kind of that. I want to stay at this particular property, let's just say in Florida. I want to stay there. You can get so many weeks a year. You can get a specific week a year. They're all different. A vacation club, you are buying in the same way, but you have multiple properties to choose from. So there's not even a specific place that is quote unquote yours. You can choose from multiple properties around different areas based on the number of weeks you choose to buy or a certain number of points. So they work just a little bit differently, but what folks find is what they're told in the beginning, how many weeks or how many properties can become limited. Or maybe in the beginning it sounded like a good idea, but they realize they can't make it that specific week or window. So it may not even have been a high pressure situation to begin with. Maybe they really did think that that was something they wanted to do, but found that it didn't work for them and then couldn't get out of it.
Well, I've seen commercials airing on radio and even TV about law firms specializing in getting people out of timeshare contracts. Why do we, I mean, does it take that much? Does it take getting a lawyer to get out of, and can you get out of a timeshare?
You know, it can get very tricky trying to get out of a timeshare, and that's some of the complaints that we receive, both trying the timeshare itself and also these timeshare exit companies. People want to get out because of costs. People want to get out because they can't use it. People want to get out because they don't realize their heirs are obligated to continue the timeshare. That gets very tricky. So when someone's going through everything with mom and dad and they realize, wait, I'm on the hook for this timeshare, they want to try to get out of that. And it can be very difficult. What BBB advises people to do is actually to start with the company where you bought the timeshare. That's your best place to start, to see if they have some sort of buyback program. Now, admittedly, it's going to cost some money to get out, but you have a much better chance of actually getting out and getting results versus what consumers have told us about some of the timeshare exit attorneys or firms that they've worked with.
And it's just constantly spending money that they're not getting anything out of. So are there any consumer protection laws in this area? Is it very gray area?
It can be a very gray area. You know, when we did the study, we did make some recommendations at BBB, some things we would like to see. So for example, a truth in lending type disclosure, like when you buy a home, there are very specific things a lender has to tell you, and that APR, so you know the interest and kind of what that looks like apples to apples. BBB would really love to see that. Or a 14-day cooling off period. So you know, when you refinance your home, you've got a right of rescission period. You should have something very similar if you were to sign up for a timeshare. So it is kind of a gray area right now, but there are certainly things that the industry could do to improve. And I think it's also important to note, not everybody's unhappy with their timeshare. We talk about this a lot. Some people find great satisfaction and love having their timeshare. It's just, unfortunately, we do see and hear about a lot more of the people who don't than the people who do.
I was going to say, I mean, are there legitimate vacation clubs and timeshares that people really do like?
Absolutely. Consumers do tell us about positive experiences. It's a matter of making sure that you're making an informed decision, that you're not feeling pressured, and that you understand everything that you're getting into before you sign up.
Okay, so you've given us scam alerts. Let's talk safety when traveling, because this is really important. Almost everything is on somebody's phone today. I mean, banking, everything. So what do we need to know before we go traveling? Maybe things to shut off, on, turn on, maybe when you're trying to get Wi-Fi somewhere? Are there risks of things, the safety of your phone?
Yeah, and so let's definitely start with that before. Make sure that you have everything updated, backdating or backing up all your files, just in case you lose your phone. Not even a scam, right?
Just might lose it, yeah.
You might lose it. It happens. Falls off the boat, you leave it on the plane, anything could happen.
Right.
So make sure all of your photos, all your data, everything's backed up. And then make sure everything's up to date. Operating system, antivirus software, if that's up to date and you happen to run into something, click on something that you shouldn't, try to, get into a hotel Wi-Fi maybe that you shouldn't, you're going to be better protected. So really making sure that you have those things, have two-factor authentication turned on just in case. You should always have that multi-factor authentication turned on for sensitive accounts anyway. But just making sure you have all of that stuff done. And then think about what you're taking. Probably don't need to take your laptop, your iPad, and your iPhone or other devices. You probably don't need everything. Just really think about taking what's essential for your trip. I used to be that person with multiple devices, and I am down to one. So, and I like it that way.
So do you have to worry about privacy settings? And like say you said you have to be careful charging your phone. The BBB warns about juice jacking. What is juice jacking?
So, it seems like we're always should be charging, right? Particularly as your phone gets older and that battery goes down, you're constantly looking for a place to plug in. So just be really careful where you plug that phone in. BBB has received reports of sort of in kind of vague looking charging stations in high traffic public areas that offer to, free charging for your phone, but they end up installing some sort of malware on your device. So really just making sure that you're plugging into a legitimate charging station, maybe at the gate. Sometimes the airlines have those now, or an outlet on the wall in the hotel versus some strange looking device that's in a public spot in the hotel. Just really be cautious about that. You might want to turn off anything auto join for Wi-Fi networks, just to make sure you don't accidentally join a network that you shouldn't. And you might consider what has location services turned on. You go into your phone, you can turn it off entirely, which you may not want to do in case you want to, for example, use your GPS. But you might want it off in certain apps when you're traveling. So you can go in individually and turn those location sharing settings off.
All right, one more. So your phone often knows where you are. They'll give you suggestions for where to eat, what to do. So do we need to worry about that? You guys have talked about fake delivery menus. Is this really a thing, fake Wi-Fi?
It can be. Scammers are very creative. I think we've all gotten to our destination at the end of the day. We finally get to the hotel and we're starving. And you see that takeout menu and you're just ready to pull the plug. Don't. Scammers have left fake menus in rooms so that you call up, give your credit card information, give them information about where you're staying. You're not going to get any food and you probably don't even know what's happened for hours later. So if you see a restaurant menu in your hotel room, just look them up online and maybe call the number or ask the desk if they know anything about the restaurant before you make that order.
Sounds good. All great advice. Pamela Hernandez, thank you. If people need to learn more, because I know there is a lot out there, go to the BBB website.
bbb.org/travel. Everything you need to know there.
All right. Thanks, Pamela Hernandez. That wraps up this edition of Newsmakers. If you're planning a trip, go to the BBB website for trips to be safe and happy traveling. Thanks to our guest, Pamela Hernandez, and thank you for watching Newsmakers.